Right, so as Victor said, we're looking at increase in SVOD services and the content strategies of pay TV operators and broadcasters around them. To do that, I'm joined by Tatiana Pavlovich, Director of Original Content Sales and Co-Production for the United Group. We also have Christopher Adult, Head of Digital at Kino Polska, Lee Hobbs, Senior Vice President of Discovery Networks and Creative Agency, EMEA, Warner Brothers Discovery. That sounds like random words rather than titles. Describe what you do. Sylvia Jeska, who is Programming Director for TV Nova, and Peter Vasson, who is Head of TV Content for Deutsche Telekom. All of our panellists have slightly different perspectives based both on the territories they work in and also the type of company they represent. So, first question, is the market saturated for content at the moment? Peter?
I would say it depends a bit on the angle you look at it. For us as a pay TV operator, I would clearly say no, of course not, because we want to have all the content in the world. If there's more content, the better. Give customers the choice. But if you look at this from an economic angle, of course, it's a different story. I think we are now in a situation where we have a lot of SVOD players in the markets where we're operating in. We have the classics, of course, HBO Max, we have Netflix, Disney Plus, and Sky Showtime now coming in. I think it gets crowded in the market for content. And if you look at these markets and the markets we are operating in, if you look at Hungary, for example, 25% inflation in the first quarter 2023. In the Balkans, roughly 20% inflation. So the share of wallet is going down, so the disposable income is going down, and I'm wondering where will all these subscriptions come from in the end, because that's a bit tricky in the future. So
do you feel you have to, I guess obviously from time to time, you'll need to reject content that for whatever reason isn't suitable for your platforms, I guess, internationally. Do you feel you're making easy decisions and saying goodbye? Or are there some where you're thinking to yourselves, I'd absolutely love to have this content on one of Deutsche Telekom's platforms, but it's just too expensive?
That's often the case. I think it is sometimes quite difficult to find common ground, I would say. So, in general, you could say that the DNA of an OTT player is a bit different than the one we are having. Yeah? So we are a telco. Yeah? We are a telco. We're having pay TV as part of our telco business, and we want to give our customers choice. So what we want to do is we want to integrate all the content. We want to give our customers choice which service to choose, but it has to be always part of that telco bundle. Yeah? While the OTT players, they want to, of course, use us as a market penetration vehicle. They want to get sales, which is fine. Of course, that's our common goal. But in the ideal case, they want to be like the only partner. They want to be what they call the hero positioning of each entertainment offering we're having, and that is a bit difficult for us because
not everybody can go on that top row, can they? It's the problem.
Yes. Yeah, so that's a problem a bit in that context.
Sylvia, I guess slightly different for you. You have channels plural, really, isn't it? And each of those needs content to fill, be it locally produced by yourself or bought in. Do you feel you've got enough, or is there maybe particular genres that you do need still?
Good day to everyone. So I actually agree with you, there is never enough good content, so I think that's true, especially for people who are constantly seeking good content for good performance. I represent the local leading TV broadcaster, and we also have the best or the biggest local SVOD platform, so we have definitely increased the volume of content we produce. And it's absolutely, we focus on local content, meaning local production, local originals. So it's something that has kind of also boosted our development needs and our production needs, and so it's absolutely local is king, and that's of course what we focus on. And so we have really worked over the last 2 years on increasing the capability of bringing diverse content or local content to our audiences. And that's great because we are now really at a stage where we have the biggest, basically, production capacity and are able to cater the needs.
Is it easier producing it yourself or with your co-producers who you mentioned?
I don't know if it's easier. It's difficult because, of course, we want to provide the best content, the highest quality content, but it's definitely very effective for us because we can manage what we produce, and it can be very focused on the local relevance, right? So we understand our viewers, we understand the needs, and so we can really tell locally relevant stories, and that's extremely helpful, of course, also by then providing some kind of a reason for them to be with us and not with the other players.
Yeah, I was racking my brains and trying to think how much of Discovery and Warner content is produced yourself. I guess it is probably most of it. Or am I missing things here?
We actually have a very sort of mixed model. So in some countries we produce ourselves, in others we commission from production companies.
Okay, is the microphone coming through okay for the just to check?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Carry on. Okay, that's interesting. What about the availability of that content, or to be precise, the right content?
Well, I think we obviously have a very rich content supply, from movies to sports to scripted series to documentaries, lifestyle, reality. So our view on content is that content's king. I agree that local is really important, but also what we find is quality content is what viewers are looking for. Great stories, shows they can relate to, movies that really bring families, viewers together, etc. So local plays a really important part in our sort of ecosystem, our platforms, our channels. But also we're really proud of our global content supply that we have as well, and that's often what's creating water cooler television. If you think of shows like The Last of Us, Game of Thrones, these are shows that are global. They really appeal to everyone, but I think they have stories that are relevant to audiences everywhere.
And get breakthrough. I think of the song, wasn't it? The early episode of Linda Ronstadt's song, wasn't it? One of the early episodes of The Last of Us, which had a impact on the Spotify chart. Such was the way that show was resonating globally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're very proud of that. That our shows really do sort of create water cooler moments. I think also, in a show like The Last of Us, I don't know if everyone saw the episode where the gay couple were there, and the amount of feedback we had about that it was so surprising, really completely, kind of celebrated diversity in a different way in a show that was very unexpected, and that's something we're really proud of as an organisation.
Christoph, what's your take? Too much content or not enough?
Is it on? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, never too much. I'm representing Kino Polska Group, which is part of SBI International, which is reporting to M7, which is part of Canal Plus Group.
You have a postcard rather than a business card.
It would look great on a business card, I guess. We are producing content, so original productions. We're mostly into lifestyle, but also feature series. I would say, made a stand on the market by doing Naked Attraction Poland, which was very popular both on the free-to-air channel that we are running, plus on our streaming platform. It was like booming during the time when it was premiered. But on the other hand, we are also doing the production of the feature series, which is heartwarming, very light comedy about, it's about romance, but it really makes it easy to relate to for people who are living not in the biggest cities, but in the smaller ones. So our core audience, basically, because for most of the channels, this is the target, this is the audience that we're targeting. So in terms of the content, never too much. We are partly producer, partly aggregator, We acquire a lot of content, not for our own channels, but also on the other panel, Bill was speaking, Bill representing M7, and he mentioned Canal Plus Action. So this is something that SPI not just acquires content on behalf of the group, but also does the content operations.
It's interesting because with the Canal Plus League, you're a very international company these days. Particularly the earlier part of your answer, you're talking about local shows. They may sometimes be in international format, but they are what you're producing for your local market.
Yeah, it started with Poland, but I guess with the group synergies, firstly we'll be discussing synergies market by market, and also maybe making it not just local, but regional at least.
Tatiana, how about you?
So United Media, for those who don't know, operates in countries of Southeastern Europe. So we are present in ex-Yugoslavia, Bulgaria and Greece. And traditionally these territories are really overcrowded with the channel offerings and content offerings of all sorts. I think it must, there must be some cultural heritage to that, because in the past every village had its own TV channel for local news and weather forecast, then we had the war that was used in propaganda purposes and so on. So simply our subscribers are used to have a lot on their table for choices. We as a group, we have 55 channels of our own, and we are our main...
Five. Okay.
Yeah, five. But also in all these territories.
Okay, of course. Okay.
And some of them are traditional free-to-air channels like Nova in Croatia and Bulgaria that I think used to be with Silvia's Nova, and now it's separated. And then we have premium pay channels in Greece and Bulgaria and the basic cable and so on. But we also have carriage deals with pretty much everyone like Peter does, and we really try to balance out the saturation, which really there is a saturation. I fully agree with my colleagues here that quality content is never enough, but there's a lot of content and not all of it is quality. Specifically in our countries, I have to say, very often the broadcasting is once and that's it. It's just not good enough to be rerun even for the
That bad?
I swear to God. I invite you to take a look. So basically this is not a healthy business model. At one point the bubble, it feels like a bubble that will burst at one point.
So I'm thinking of, I don't know, I guess you can imagine a scenario of a sports channel which gets its key property. It might be Premier League, it might be Grand Prix, but then in order to run a channel, it buys a whole load of sports that nobody is particularly interested in. Curling from Scotland, that's sort of
I fully agree. Then again, given the current landscape where you have a platform like Deutsche Telekom, like SVOD or Telemark in our countries like Nova, you have this multitude of channel offerings and VODs of all sorts. And I have to say, what is very important to take into consideration, because really our very important businesses are free-to-airs, we see when we read the audiences that what we call the dynamic others is 40+%. So yeah, the niche markets are not in danger. However, how do you make it viable business-wise? That's the question.
And it's interesting, you described there, you have different channels in different parts of the market, paid, basic and everything in between, and each of those different style of channels or platform have different demands.
Absolutely, and all of these countries, even though they're physically near each other, they're extremely different. So the editorial part is super important. You have to curate, you have to really, all this fuss about fast channels, great. Was the free ad-supported television, which is the commercial television in its original sense, right? Which actually is recycled content on platforms. So we don't really do that because we don't need it. It feels like a lot of what we have on our carriage deals are those channels, So
yes, never mind the quality, feel the width, or something similar to that. Let's take a look then at how some of the content strategies are beginning to evolve. Christoph, what do you feel is changing? Is there demand now for a particular type of content that wasn't the case a few years ago, before the arrival of the OTT style services?
Well, for sure, I can relate to our platform and to our experience, but also I guess you're asking about what's going on the market. So in Poland, I may not rediscover America here, but for example, if you consider the genres, the series about the crime or mystery, they are booming, I would say. So
Law and Order, Blue Bloods, that kind of
the likes, of plus, let's say, local production counterparts, because firstly, there are people who just buy the formats and make it local, and secondly, there are producers who just come up with original ideas for sub-series. But if you consider genre-wise, it's really getting bigger and bigger.
Well, why do you think that is, particularly that genre? I guess some things are almost like related to the times in which we live. I guess if you go back 50, maybe even 60 years, US TV is like westerns, or the High Chaparral Bonanza, that sort of thing. But with the notable exception of Yellowstone, there's not so much of that these days.
I don't think I have an easy explanation for that. It's just an observation, and the data shows that it's really gaining popularity. And there is much spent on such type of content.
Yeah, I mentioned Yellowstone, not one of yours, of course. That's a Paramount series, but I guess there's plenty of franchises which you have within both the Discovery and the. I was thinking there's one business. I'm sorry. Within WBD, there we go.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you said franchises actually, because I think that for me is the big difference with OTT. I don't think there's any real genre changes as such. I do agree that crime, and we find real crime, kind of mystery and...
that's a whole genre for us. I know it's been around, it feels like it's come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think OTT has suddenly had some really big water cooler shows, right, that everyone's talking about, but the genre's been there for a long time, I think. But I think it's the franchise piece that's really changed, I think, with OTT. So that viewers are really looking to go really deep into shows they love. They want spin-offs, they want prequels, they want the behind-the-scenes, kind of shows. They really want to kind of really go deeper into their favourite characters. But it's also not just with scripted. We also find it on some of our factual shows and lifestyle shows that, we'll produce a show in America, for example, a format, and then it does so well that we start making local versions of it and taking even deeper. And to that point that you were making about local being really key. For us, it's sort of a hybrid approach. Often our global shows go in, they really start the conversation, and then we find local productions can take it further, or spin-offs, etc.
It's interesting. Is there also, though, I wonder, with some of the franchise shows, an element of just playing it safe, not a lack of creativity, and it's like, let's see what this character's grandfather did. We'll go back in time.
It's a really interesting question. We do obviously ask ourselves that a lot. Are we playing it safe by doing this? But actually, we're reacting to what consumers are telling us. There are shows that we can see that people just enjoy watching over and over again. There are certain shows, that people will watch multiple times. And they're craving more from those characters, or from the storyline or whatever. So I think you could argue it's playing safe from a certain angle, but I would say you're actually really responding to consumer needs and what the kind of trends are and people wanting more of.
I guess it's where you have like the Dick Wolf on Chicago series of Chicago Med and Chicago PD and Chicago Fire, which I think in the States, I can't remember which order, but literally run 1 hour after the next, whatever night of the week they're on.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just with scripted. So one of our biggest shows we have on a channel brand we have called TLC, which is one of our leading sort of female-skewed brands across the world. We have a show called 90 Day Fiancé, which has become a real phenomenon. And as sort of now we have about 10 or 11 different spin-offs, plus local versions being made, plus a kind of companion piece called Pillow Talk. It's really become a huge phenomenon, and it's about all the characters, finding those interesting people that people can relate to. It feels quite international too, because it's filmed all over the world, essentially, this show. So I don't think it's just a scripted thing. I think it can work also on lifestyle and reality shows as well.
So
If I react, the interesting thing is, because I represent also the Slovak operation, and for example, it's a smaller market, so it's much less writers and creators. So actually for us there, it's incredibly helpful to take proven formulas from abroad. So if there is a show which traveled to several markets, there is a reason why it was successful in several markets. There is something in it, some formula that probably can travel. So for us it's extremely helpful, and it's lowering our risk because of the lack of, let's say, quality writers. And also Slovak audience, actually, they don't necessarily care where the story came from, as long as it's a strong story. So they focus more on the emotional scale of it. So we do a lot of adaptations, whereas in Czech market, for example, it's a really rich market for a lot of talent and a lot of writing talent, producing talent, and also Czech audience really likes Czech content, original content. And so it's then the opposite, right? Where here we really seek those local stories, and also the fact you can say that it's brought to you by a certain writer or a certain director, it carries a lot of weight. So that's also important to kind of always consider, right? So, but it's really helpful to have those shows that travel, and then they make our life a little bit easier because you don't spend so much time in development, because it takes a long time, of course, to bring a show on air.
Yeah, I guess if a format's good, and it will, well, not everywhere, but it will work in more places than it doesn't. Well, what trends are you seeing, Peter?
A good question, actually, because we're operating pay TV in 9 markets, and these 9 markets are so diverse. So we're operating in Austria, in Poland, in the Balkans, in Czech and Slovakia, in Hungary, Greece. So these are different languages, different cultural backgrounds, different localizations, everything is different. So what works everywhere, I would say, is of course sports. It's local content works everywhere. That's really important.
Different local content works everywhere, but not necessarily the same local content.
The question is always, why do we as DT do not invest more into own programming? The reason is obvious, because it is a so diverse cluster of markets. Yeah? So if you produce something in the Balkans, it doesn't work in Poland, probably. Or if you produce something in Austria, it doesn't work in Hungary. So that's the reason actually we rely more on the aggregation. And if we do own production, which is very, very limited, so we do some own production in Greece, we do some production in Slovakia, and the reasons for that is, and the 2 examples now, it has to be really local, and local means local. For example, in Slovakia, we have our kids content channel, which is called Tuki TV, and the reason why we have that is because all the kids content, international kids content, is localized in Czech language. So that's why we wanted to have a Slovak language kids content channel. That's why we did Tuki TV, which is a huge success. It is not expensive, and it's really working well. In Greece, we have an old history channel because I think it was 2015, at the peak of the financial crisis in Greece. We couldn't agree with an international history channel company on the prolongation of the contract, so we thought, okay, maybe let's do something on our own and focus simply and only on Greek history. And the Greek history is vast, and so we did own production on Greek engineers, on Greek history in the wider sense, on Greek entrepreneurs, on philosophers, ministers, everything, and that worked tremendously. Yeah? So in the peak of the crisis, when the country was devastated, everybody was without self-esteem. It really worked to give them confidence.
And do you feel the approach that you have has changed since the arrival of the OTT, the streaming services, or are these decisions that you'd have taken anyway? Are they, in other words, are they the same decisions that you would have made, or have they been just ever so slightly adjusted or directed somewhere else because of the evolving market?
No, not really, I would say.
Same.
Yeah.
Can I add to that? I think from our side, it's not necessarily the content, but it's how we're using the content. The windowing and the scheduling of content has changed with OTT. So we're being more thoughtful about how we're dropping episodes, how we're scheduling them across our kind of whole ecosystem, working with our partners. But the content's not changed, I don't think, really so much.
I guess it's an interesting one because time is arguably irrelevant these days, although I'm sure you do schedule programmes still for a particular time when you know that they're going to work. But does that in itself complicate things? You know, the days when, I don't know, you wouldn't probably schedule your hospital drama up against somebody else's hospital drama. These days, well, you get hospital drama whenever you want to because of the on-demand. Does it work like that, or are the old rules still there?
I actually think some of the old rules are still there. I think when the OTT players started, Netflix, for example, would just sort of drop an entire series on its platform and let people view it when they want. But now, some of the those traditional linear techniques of a kind of water cooler moment, Sunday evening, get everyone watching, talking about it in the office the next day. That's how The Last of Us. That's how Succession. These are the big shows at the moment. That's how they're dropping. So there's that kind of.
And shows like The Last of Us and Succession are literally dropping around the world at the same time.
Exactly, yeah. And what we find as well is that viewers are at 4 a.m, staying up, getting up early, so they can be watching it before they start reading all the spoilers on Twitter.
Bizarre. I see your shows through the Sky Atlantic arrangement in the UK. As we don't have HBO Max just yet, and you see the new episode scheduled for 2 o'clock in the morning, and you think, who's watching it? And you the next day you realise that from social media that yes, people have been watching it.
I think the difference obviously with OTT is you don't just have that one hit. So if it lands on a Sunday evening, people can watch it whenever they want. But in truth, most people it's a habit. On a Sunday evening, they know in Succession they're going to watch the next episode. They won't wait till Monday or Tuesday. There's still that kind of linear viewing habit, I think, that people have as well.
I guess that would potentially stay. So I guess we're kind of getting into what's working best. And Peter referenced sports. That sport is important for your channels, but I guess it might be because of the area that you cover. It might be different sport. I sometimes think of a country's second, third, and fourth most popular sports are almost as interesting as the first, because the answer there is invariably football.
No, actually, sport content is probably why some of our linear channels are still alive, because this is what you tend to watch on the.
So this is sport and the general entertainment channel, as opposed to sport and the sports channel.
We do both. Okay. So basically, in Greece on our pay TV channels, Nova Sports are very hugely popular. In across ex-Yugoslavia we have Sport Club, and in Bulgaria we have Diema Sport and Nova Sport. So this sector is extremely competitive, so we don't always get what we want. The prices are amazingly big, and the bidding wars are all over the place. But for example, we do try to kind of give to our audience what they try for. Like now, currently in Serbia and Greece, we will have basketball. Partizan didn't qualify with Real Madrid did for Final Four, but Olympiacos did, so it's a massive thing for our subscribers. They have it on Nova Sport, and I believe the entire country will be watching the Olympiacos in Lithuania next week. But I have a better example. We have an exclusive deal in Croatia for all the games of the national team. And when we schedule those on our free-to-air channel, we have 60+% audience share. You cannot arrive to that result with anything else. You can have this Sunday evening big show, Dancing with the Stars, or whatever you want. In the best case scenario, will have 40. 60 is only sport that can provide.
And I guess the thing with something like an international football match, the same way you get into American awards season, I'm assuming, but first of all, journalism never assume, that the sheer magnitude of the event and the audience overrides the disruption to the schedule, because you're saying, here we are, we've got the big event, we're the channel which gets all the big events.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have currently Survivor on Nova Croatia and Nova Serbia. We make it for the two countries, it's a co-production. And we had to reschedule a certain time. It's a huge show and it works really massively well. And we had to reschedule because there was a game of the national team in Croatia. But I have to say, Croatia, this small country, is a huge football nation. So there's that. Maybe if we had probably Roland Garros, if in the finals you have Novak Djokovic, it will have 60% share in Serbia, you know. So it's not like systematic. It really needs to be particular to the market.
Yes, Djokovic is usually out for the first round of Andy Murray these days. It's not quite so good. Christoph, what are you seeing in Poland with Kino Polska and the networks around you? Sports, obviously. What are the other ones to keep an eye on?
Well, sports is a clear differentiator. You don't have to have live sports in order to be successful in the streaming domain, but clearly the biggest guys in the markets, they usually compete and they usually have some live sports offering. Of course, it comes with a cost. It's a different league. You have to, in order to be in it, you have to compete, you have to bury the cost. Sometimes these costs go over the roof. So it's rather a marketing spend than the spend that you would justify with the regular business case. But yeah, let me refer to what Lee was saying. I fully agree. I mean, the linear patterns and what was successful on linear channels is in a way represented in the successful streaming platforms as well. It's not that different. It's just a question of how you transition and how you try to bridge these two worlds. Because again, if you take our platform as an example, just to create a broader picture, our group has been present on the markets for many years now, and we are present in the free-to-air segment. We have basic channels, CBT channels, plus we are offering a premium package of channels which is called Filmbox. For those who don't know the name. So basically we are operating in each and every segment of the traditional TV business. And on the streaming platform we are already copying, if not transitioning the models which are very known from the traditional TV. Like for example, we don't do binge with series. We just premiere.
Oh, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
So
it's not purpose. So
have you ever done binge or
just with the library series?
Okay.
But with the premiere ones,
Yeah.
the idea is not to do the binge. It's just to be the digital first, the premiere medium for anything.
And are other operators in the Polish market, are they using the binge method?
Well, most of the streaming platforms do the binge, but of course HBO model is very well known. HBO did the same. I mean, the premiere in digital, the premiere on the platform was usually preceding the premiere.
What I'm wondering here is the effect that it has on consumption. Is there any evidence one way or the other, or does it depend on the genre? If you drop a series in one go, or if you let it out on a weekly basis, does it make any difference ultimately as to how many people watch?
It definitely does for our market.
Okay.
In Serbia, for example, we have our OTT platform, which is in all our countries. It's called Ion, and we have dropped a very big series called The Black Sun, which is very popular in ex-Yugoslavia. First, it was on Ion for binging. It was the first time it was introduced in all these countries as a model for the local series. And then it really was extremely beneficial for the whole business. It brought up the subscriber base, it brought up the audience on the linear channel when we scheduled it there, so it was really a very good operation for us on a group level.
Now this is interesting, so if I'm understanding you correctly, word of mouth had kind of gotten round about the series and people watching it on streaming, so when it premiered as a regular show on a linear channel, it had a momentum, almost like a second series coming in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. However, I really need to point out that this was particular to this genre. This was a big crime series of 10 episodes, big production. It was like a movie.
Okay.
What we tend to produce for our other free-to-air channels are like daily series, let's say romantic, long-running drama series, and I'm trying not to say telenovela, based on the Turkish model or Latin American model, and this is what actually works. So this is not convenient for this type of operations. However, this big high-end series that we really like, this 10 episodes would probably cost the same like 100 on the other way, It's
genre specific is what you're.
It's genre specific, but also this is very much a premium type of content. On the other hand, we also produce fiction that is not that premium, but that actually drives audience because it creates the habit. It federates people on a different, on a certain slot, which for our free-to-airs is quite crucial.
So would you? I guess the answer is yes, but I guess the follow-up is then. Well,
yes,
how many would you do it again? Would you do it again? But you would be picking carefully what you did that with.
Absolutely, and as I explained earlier, we are a full range of offerings. So we are also telcos. So it's important for us to have subscribers on our telcos, and we will use our media outlets to kind of draw them in. So it has to be both ways.
I'm intrigued by this. Does anybody else have any similar examples which they could give us in this area? Leave that Sylvia.
Exactly. We don't really do binge viewing with like new shows initially, but it is a technique we even use on linear sometimes. So imagine if you've got a new series we have one of our big shows on Discovery Channel called Gold Rush. It's been running for a number of years. It's a real fan favourite. And then ahead of the new season, we'll often give even our linear viewers a chance to sort of binge watch the weekend before or something like that. So kind of almost
like a block of a day or something.
A marathon, right?
Like a marathon, essentially. Yeah, almost like a Netflix sort of box setting technique, but just to refresh everyone's memory of the story so far, to get the superfans back onto the channel ready for the new launch. So again, I don't think it's a technique that's just for OTT. I think pay TV linear has kind of set these trends, years in advance than the OTT platforms are.
I guess it's. I think we seem to be discovering generally within the session. It's using all the old ideas but repackaging them and being careful as to how you use them, because you don't know what you don't know what the effect would be otherwise. Sylvia.
I want to comment on a few topics that you mentioned. So definitely what has somehow, the streaming, what has brought for us is ability to expand on the genres and types of shows, especially in terms of volume of episodes. Because for linear, we need a lot of episodes to fill the slots. But the way we utilize this content on the streaming is actually in advanced streaming. So we're giving the streaming viewers something, beneficial, something different. And of course the linear helps to drive the reach, so it's extremely important that it somehow coexists, and exactly these experiences where, especially if you have upcoming seasons and then you launch a season before, so you can really work nicely with windowing and with kind of like cross-communication of your shows between the two. For us, so definitely, traditional procedural crime shows or long-running, we don't call them telenovelas, so long-running series. So this is something that's very, very strong on linear. And in streaming, we have kind of expanded into a lot more true crime, true story, a bit more events, some more dramedy, so a bit more even like daring content, which is really great, I think, for the local audience, that they are now getting to see not only the international trends, but they get to see those trends in the local versions, let's say, in the stories that speak to them.
I'm hoping this is something that Lee can answer. The thought has come to me regarding sports content, and particularly in the Nordics, but elsewhere. You have Germany, I guess, as well too. You have free-to-air general entertainment channels. You have a sports network in Eurosport, and you have a streaming service that's attached to that. There must be some delightful cross-promotion and activities that you do between the three.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do that a lot on sports, but we also do it with all genres, of content as well. We have the rights to the Olympics, for example, in most European markets, and that content works incredibly well across streaming platforms and on free-to-air, and of course on Eurosport as well. So so you're absolutely right. We use all of our big ticket shows, really, as Sylvia's saying, to kind of really communicate between our different brands. It's a great way of showing our sort of viewers exactly what our wider offering is. I'm sure everyone probably would agree that we all do that.
Local content we mentioned a few times, both today and across the 2-3 days ago. How you counted of this conference, and I know that within United you're working a lot on the local content, particularly with local producers to get the local content out. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that, Tatiana.
So we basically do produce a lot of TV drama series. They can be of various genres, like we just said. Some are high-end, premium pay type of content that I will sell on SVODs and on more thematic channels, pay TV channels like Canal Plus and stuff like that. Some others are long-running, not telenovela-like content that they will sell as ready-made in Middle East and certain Latin American countries, but also as format in Slovakia, in Greece, in Hungary. Like in Hungary, it's very particular. On RTL, for the last 4 years, it's local Croatian series adaptations, and they are working wonderfully well. This is like this magical moment when you can create locally and then also sell a little bit globally.
Interesting. So you're sort of selling, and I'm trying to think of an example here. I think the BBC ran a Welsh soap opera for a few months or something too.
Yeah, exactly. So we do produce in different ways. In Croatia, we have a very, very skilled drama development team, and we do all productions in-house. In Bulgaria, we will produce both in-house and with producers from local independent producers. In Serbia, it's only independent producers. That's the case also in Greece. So we really tend to get the talent to want to work with us, because we offer a huge visibility in every way. So.
And are they, relative to buying something in, is it a cheaper way, or is it just a different way because you're spending the money somewhere else?
No, so as I mentioned, we have those 55 channels, and you have to fill them in with content, and it's not always produced for them, right? So we do a lot of acquisitions as well. So we do both deals with studios, big studios like Warner Brothers and others, independent producers.
And does it matter if those shows are ones which people might have seen on an OTT service, say, before?
It doesn't matter, because this is a completely different type of viewing and audience as well, and even if it's the same audience, it's different audience habits. So even though we do all these deals with international content providers that's not local content, primetime has to stay local, because otherwise it simply doesn't work. I don't know if Silvia can agree to that, but free-to-air primetime, if it's not local, on our secondary channels like Doma and such, we will schedule some big movies or series like that, but on the main channel, primetime is always local.
So is that the same, Sylvia, then here in the Czech Republic?
Yes, 100%. I mean, if we use foreign, it's just maybe to kind of fill the grid on the main channel. One of actually quite unique drivers in the Czech market is are also Czech movies. So movies do kind of have a place, but the majority of the content is either like local reality shows, local drama series, exactly as mentioned. So for sure, primetime is fully local, and the thematic channels then, of course, offer the international content that viewers are used to on linear.
And when you're buying content in, where are you looking, and for which genres that you can't produce locally?
I guess from what we discussed, there's so much content out there, so from perspective of acquisitions, it's actually a great time, because you can really select, although a lot of it is very kind of like low volume of episodes, which especially for linear buying is a problem. So we're always looking for any kind of product that has a lot of seasons, ideally a lot of episodes, something that you can strip because the small channels are usually kind of scheduled in a strip mode, and we are always looking for light viewing. So whoever watches the thematic channels on linear, they usually are going for light viewing if it's crime procedurals, late crime, sitcoms, any kind of this content.
And the same question I asked Tatiana a short time ago: does it matter if these series have been, I don't know, if for the sake of what we heard earlier about Bill's arrangement through Canal Plus for Apple TV content, if you had the opportunity to buy content which had been on Apple TV or anyone else for that matter, Amazon, Netflix, it doesn't matter who, would you be interested in that type of content to show on one of your linear channels?
I guess in general we're open to any kind of content because we localize it, it's all dubbed. So basically for the viewer, they don't of course really recognize exactly where it came from, and we are looking for strong stories, so essentially the story wins regardless of where it comes from. But I think usually the challenge with the streamers is exactly that it's a low volume of episodes. So as I said, for linear that's really difficult to schedule. You need to create habit, linear TV is all about people kind of like they have their habits, and linear TV actually follows their lifestyle and kind of like patterns during the day. So it's important to have stability, kind of predictability. For us that's important, because if we buy a 3-episode something, by the time you communicate it, people don't even notice it's there. So that's of course beneficial then for streaming, because there it can sit and you can introduce it to people in different times. So there we have a wider selection, and again it's incredible that there's so much content in the world that we can really choose, and because on streaming we buy actually non-exclusive, you have available a lot of content. On linear it's still exclusive, so we have big deals which are exclusive to us, but on streaming you really can choose basically from anywhere, anything.
Christoph, what about the... Oh, sorry, Peter, do you comment?
Same for us actually. So Greece is the only market where we do our own channels, program our own channels, and also for Cosmote movie channels we are acquiring out of that enormous amount of content which is available. I think it's only a selection of great content which resonates and then also can be used in our online platform Cosmote Plus. So,
Christoph, local content, the cost of it, is it? I don't know. I guess with more production crews required for more and more local content, there's a lot of it made. What's happening to the costs?
Well, firstly, you need to figure out the doing, and secondly, we are also doing content sales, so we're not keep it fully exclusive. After some time, it goes external, I would say. So there are several other methods of how to cope with it, but we try to diversify. Of course, it doesn't always pay if you just keep it for yourself.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the production and the cost, say, per hour of producing that content, how is...
It really depends on the type.
Okay.
For example, last year we did the reality show, and by the way, this genre or type of content is also popular in Poland, as you can imagine. We are doing how-to series, or series about the people, I would call them still lifetime. Not lifetime, but lifestyle. Lifestyle series about the people who were successful in what they're doing in their professional life.
The famous series, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, something like that.
For example, but also famous scientists, for example, or people who were in a totally different domain. They decided to quit the corporate world and then do the business on their own. They became super successful, and we are showing the cases.
Human interest stories.
Yeah, so it raises the human interest. And then also on the group level, we already started larger scale cooperation with Canal Plus. So I'd like to mention that there is this lifestyle series premiering this spring, which is called Patent for Greenery, which is about greenery, eco things, etc. And it's co-produced by Canal Plus and Kino Polska Group, and it's premiered on the two channels, I would say concurrently. So Canal Plus Domo channel, which which is a thematic channel.
Okay.
And Zoom TV, which is on free-to-air, which is
Interesting.
operated by Kino Polska. Also, we co-produce movies, some of them very successful. Last year, the movie, which is with the title Fierce, won the main awards at the Polish Film Festival, and it was the first example of such large-scale co-production.
And do we all think as a group that it, as often seems to be the case, that it's local content that can really differentiate a broadcaster in all its forms, whether it's drama or whether it's lifestyle related?
I don't think it's that simple actually. I think it's quite, it sort of depends on the channel. So for example on pay TV and thematic channels, I don't think local makes necessarily a difference because people watch those channels in a different way. It's almost the environment. They want 4 hours of content in a certain genre they like. It doesn't need to be local. Local can definitely help, don't get me wrong, and it definitely plays a part, but on free-to-air, of course, that's where local comes in, as you guys are saying. But I think pay has a different role to play in some ways. I think, movie channels, it doesn't have to be local, it just has to be a great movie, bring consumers in, etc. And so yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, but I would say that also on pay TV, I think local gives your channel or your content a face, a flavor. So it makes it for the audience easier to get closer to your channel and to your proposition. I think it is really important. Also on pay.
Well, you're right, from a marketing perspective, it can
Can be brand defining, I presume.
But again, I think it depends on the genre. If you look at, we have a crime channel called ID, which is very popular, all over Europe, and it's incredibly US-centric. It doesn't need to be local because, I think for one
Because
reason
they have worse crimes.
Exactly. We don't want to crime in
I'm sorry. I come from the Balkans, where the reality is stranger than fiction. We very often don't even invent scripts. We just pick up the newspaper.
You don't need crime sound, just asking your neighbour what's happened recently.
But crime is not, you don't need local for crime, you need compelling stories. And I think it's also what Sylvia was saying about scheduling, it's that closed-ended narrative of a programme that's also very critical in pay because you don't necessarily have a viewer watching the same time every day, their viewing patterns are different. So what they like is a show that they can dip in and out of. They don't feel like, oh damn, I've missed 3 episodes, therefore I can't watch the rest of that series. Obviously the exception is scripted and some of the big factual shows like Gold Rush for example, but viewers have sort of bought into that. It's quite rare that a show in pay can really kind of carry an overarching narrative. I think you need more closed-ended.
I've been thinking about this recently, and I just feel there's, not exclusively the case, but I do feel there's more and more series that demand you to commit to every single episode and watch them in order, rather than a single solve the case in 60 minutes kind of thing. There's a few of those about, but not as many as there once were proportionately at least.
Probably true, but I think also it goes back to Sylvia's point that they're probably shorter run shows, so they're not 16 apps or 10 apps.
Yeah.
It's probably 3 apps. So they're still kind of, that will work, I think, to kind of buy someone in, but with the exception of telenovelas, although I know we're not calling them that, but with the exception of those, it's really hard to grip someone, I think, continuously for a long period of time.
But you don't binge telenovela. Telenovela serves to tell people, okay, at 10 o'clock you're now watching television,
Yeah.
Depends how hooked you are on the story. Sometimes you can binge even 200 episodes if you're really a big fan, right? So.
I think next time we need a whole session on telling you about this. Does anybody have any questions which we'll take in the last couple of moments of our time together? If there are any, I'm looking to the outer reaches. Doesn't seem to be at the moment. I did want to ask, having sort of established some of the important parts of content. Is content on its own enough? What are the sort of the other elements, just to close with, that we need to have to make the service complete, if you like, to do that differentiation from the OTT services? I'll start with Peter and work our way around.
I mean, you had the session earlier with Daniel, my colleague from TV Product here. So content discovery, I think, is very important. That if we want to have all the content in the end, of course, should be the content in one user interface with a great recommendation, great content discovery and content session. I think this is really key in the end. When we always say content is king, yes, that's true, but I think then user experience is Kong, and then we have King Kong, yeah, so that works in the end. But I think content is nothing without content discovery. And for us as a telco, of course, looking one level higher, TV is part of our telco product. So I think the bundling also with broadband and mobile is also very important for us. So it's not only about content differentiation or differentiation via content, but also via the entire telco product in the end.
Sylvia.
I mean, from our side, you can have a great show, but if no one knows about it, no one watches it. So I guess it really helps that we are mass media. So of course, the communication part of it is extremely crucial. That you have, really strong marketing, you have really strong, just PR support, strong social media presence. So you really get the show out there and get people talking about it. So I think that's extremely important. So not just to have a great content, but also to have a really strong support system for people to actually know that you have this great content.
Yeah, I agree, content is king, but I think also curation is the critical piece too. That there were sessions yesterday where some colleagues were talking about how linear is still important even on OTT. It's all about curation. So whether it's the linear channel or the SVOD elements, it's really figuring out whether it's through machine learning and kind of the algorithm, but also kind of for us we spend a lot of time merchandising and sort of curating.
I hope for the sake of your colleagues there's still a demand for gut feeling in all of this planning beyond AI.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a real skill, curating content even on OTT where you think people are just choosing. We're kind of working with the viewer to kind of recommend content to kind of take their viewing further. So I think curation is almost as important as content, and definitely marketing as well, and making sure the message is out there.
Yes, I won't surprise you. I fully agree. Immersion in content, not just content discovery.
Immersion is a good word here.
Yeah, and also, by the way, immersion helps you bridge this linear world with the VOD. Like, for example, on our platform we have VOD content, but we also have 16 live channels, only our channels, our own channels. And in the EPG, you can go directly. I know it's not discovering America again, but you can go directly. So when you find content that suits you, you can either stay and watch what's live, or go to the title that is of interest to you, and the other way around. So these two worlds can also kind of complement each other. Let me comment on the previous topic, the locality of content and how to get there. I think what's most important, and the local content, how it should work, it should really help the people to connect to this hero, connect to the story, connect to the way it's conducted. So, of course, on our platform, it's not surprising, these original productions that I mentioned, plus Polish content in general are the most popular, but number two, top two in terms of watch time and watch time hours popularity, is Turkish series, because we also have this channel which is full of the Turkish telenovelas. So we were joking and coming up with the idea to have a series in which a Turkish guy would come to Poland, fall in love with the Polish woman, and then more and more people could connect to their story. Of course, it's a joke.
Crossover kind of story.
Yeah, you're looking for this connection with the content. So I fully agree with especially with the movies. If you have a good movie and the movie lover, people most probably won't care that much if it's local or not local. But if you're to be intrigued by the story and fall in love in a certain hero or whatever, most probably it's better than it's a local hero, most popular local actor, whatever.
Local advice too, I think. If you have somebody sort of moving from one place to another, fish out of water.
Exactly, yeah.
Always a winner, really. Tatiana, finish off here.
To finish off here, to come back at the beginning of our conversation about saturation, quality content is never enough, but there's really a lot of content that is not quality content. I think the home viewing experience is also about doing nothing. So in order for people to really enjoy what you're offering is, the technical side needs to be good as well. You know, I think our platform Ian is very popular because it does offer kind of a very subjective viewing experience. The offering, the editorial side, the way you present the content, it has to be kind of tailor-made. Otherwise, you know, people get bored of the abundance of choice. You know, so yeah, definitely it has to be combined with good PR, with cross-promotion and all that, but also the technology of how you present content needs to be really popular.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. The conversation was also at top level. Please show your appreciation for our panelists. Thank you.